If your goal is to understand yourself and to tap into your intuition in the clearest possible way, then understanding the position of your moon in the birth chart and your moon sign is absolutely key. The moon in astrology represents not just your emotions and your mood, but it represents your subjective sense of reality, your inner world and experience. It represents your feelings, your instincts, your habitual patterns that are subconscious that you might not even be aware of. And it, of course, represents your intuitive capabilities and the way that you can actually tap into and utilize and understand your own unique intuitive hits. And so in this video, what we're going to be doing is a deep dive into the energy of your moon sign and how that represents or relates to your intuitive capacity and how you can use this information to enhance your intuition now into the future, so you can understand your world better, so you can make better decisions, so you can get more clarity in your life. Now, while the moon is super, super important, it is one of the key pieces to the puzzle when it comes to understanding your intuition. It's not the only piece to the puzzle. And so for those of you who want to get really deep into understanding intuition and psychic abilities in astrology, make sure you check out my webinar, The Astrology of Intuition, Psychic Abilities, and Paranormal Experiences, which is available to you right now for free with a 7-day free trial membership to my cosmic community at the link in the description below. Not only will you get access to this webinar, which will tell you everything you need to know about your chart to understand yourself on that intuitive psychic level, but you'll also get access to a ton of additional webinars, including my latest webinar on Chiron in the birth chart, webinars about career and life's purpose in astrology, and so much more. Again, that link is down in the description below, my free gift to you. And in the meantime, my other free gift to you is this video in which we will be diving into the moon sign specifically and in a lot of detail. So in this video, I'm not going to be going in my normal rotation in zodiacal order by sign. I'm actually going to be grouping the moon signs by element first and then breaking them down by each modality. The reason I'm doing this is because each element in the astrological signs has a specific signature for the way your intuition comes through, whether or not it's easy to access, whether or not you need to access it more receptively versus actively, and how to actually tap into your intuition, different tips and tools you can use based on those elements. From there, we're going to get into the different modalities, which are cardinal, fixed, and mutable, which break it down even further as we get into the specific details of each of the zodiac signs. And so we're going to go in order of earth, then air, then fire, then water. I have chapters for you down here if you want to jump ahead, but make sure you listen to the beginning part where I talk about the energy of the element first before I get into each of the signs. So listen to your whole element if possible, and if you have the time to do so. I'll keep it concise. And so before we get into the energy of all the signs, I just want to mention, for those of you who are new to my channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you never miss an important astrology update. I do teach astrology here on this channel, as well as provide bi-weekly forecasts for the waning and waxing phases of the lunar cycle every single Saturday, or almost every Saturday at 9 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time, so you don't want to miss an important astrology update. And so let's get right into it. So I'm going to start first by just giving a brief overview of the energy of cardinal, fixed, and mutable as a precursor to kind of breaking it down by element, so you can get an idea, for those who are a little bit newer to astrology, about what I'm talking about here. And this is the way that I always teach the zodiac signs in my Cosmic Academy of Astrology, and to all of my students, because it helps you to understand the signs much more clearly, and it helps you to understand more advanced concepts like planetary aspects when you start putting all of the pieces together to give readings. When you truly understand the different qualities of each sign, the element, the modality, the polarity, all of that. And so it's really going to help you to have a deeper and maybe a different understanding of your moon sign, to look at it in this perspective. And so for the cardinal signs are going to experience their intuition in a more visceral, impulsive sort of way, where their first instinct is typically the right instinct. The cardinal signs, of course, are Aries, Libra, Cancer, and Capricorn, for those who are not aware. And so these are signs where the energy is more conducive for initiation. It's the beginning of each new season. It's these cardinal points in the zodiac, right, where we have the equinoxes and the solstices. They represent periods of new beginning. They represent some sort of impulse for creation, impulse for something new. And so when we see the moon in one of these cardinal signs, you know that the intuition is going to come through in some sort of impulse. And that, again, the first impression is most likely to be the right impression when it comes to your instincts, when it comes to the intuitive hits that you get. The fixed signs are usually much more solid. Their intuition is usually a lot more on point, especially when you're looking at the water signs and the earth signs. But their intuition is usually very solid. So when we're looking at the fixed signs, we're looking at Taurus, we're looking at Scorpio, we're looking at Aquarius, and we're looking at Leo. And so the fixed signs are kind of the middle point of each season, where the energy of that season, the weather in that season is relatively stable versus the beginning and the end of each season. In the Northern Hemisphere, this is all based off of, but in general, if you're looking at seasonal markers, the fixed energy represents the time where it's more stabilized. And so when you have your moon in a fixed sign, your intuition is usually locked in and it's usually pretty steady. It's not like you have this first impulse and then maybe you go off in a different direction or you waver. It's like you intuit this and then it sticks with you in some sort of way. And the way in which this comes about and the way in which it sticks with you will be much more clear when we get into the elements. Finally, we have the mutable signs. So the mutable signs in the zodiac are Virgo, Pisces, Gemini, and Sagittarius. And so the mutable signs represent the transitionary periods between seasons, where the energy and the weather gets a little bit more turbulent and all over the place. It's where there's a fluctuation in the energy. And this is also a sign in which our intuition can fluctuate. If you have your moon in a mutable sign, it can be harder to lock in on what's really going on, to get that clarity that you seek when it comes to your intuition, when it comes to your instincts about something. And so the mutable signs have that fluctuation, which makes your intuition a little bit harder to pin down. Again, it'll become much more clear what I mean by this when we get into each of the elements and each of the signs. But just to give you a little overview and a background on the cardinal, fixed, and mutable energies. And so now that we have that little prerequisite out of the way, let's get into talking about the elements. So for the earth signs are, they're very much associated with the element of the earth, but the moon and the earth signs tend to need very tangible proof, or to use something tangible in order to tap into their intuitive capabilities. So using nature as the stimulating force, so maybe going out in nature, being in the woods, earthing or grounding, actually touching the ground, gardening, being, in the earth or working with the earth in some way, or very literally using physical tools and your sensory experience to sort of round out your intuition and to tap into your intuitive capabilities. That's really one of the best ways to harness your intuition if you have an earth sign moon. And so the earth signs are Taurus, Virgo, and of course Capricorn. And so material tools that you could use are things like stones and crystals. You could use candles, colors, aromatherapy, different scents or essential oils. You can use taste, you can use touch. Massage can be something for especially those Taurus moon people that can really help you to tap into your intuitive capabilities. And so thinking about that element of earth, and also thinking about the fact that the earth signs are receptive signs. They're feminine in nature. And in astrology, masculine and feminine isn't actually describing like the gender in the traditional sense. It's describing an energy of being more active versus being more receptive. And so the earth signs are receptive signs, and therefore you're going to receive your intuition if you're kind of sitting back and allowing it to formulate, if you're allowing it to come in and more in a surrendering sort of fashion, versus the masculine signs, which are more actively engaged in seeking out these intuitive hits, these intuitive impressions. And so the earth sign, again, is more receptive. When the moon is in Taurus, this is one of the most, if not the most, intuitive moon sign. Not only is your moon exalted in the sign of Taurus, so that means that it can operate and function not just optimally, but in a way where it's fully supported and enhanced. That means your intuition, which is represented by the moon, is fully supported and enhanced. But you have this really grounded energy with your intuition, where when you get an intuitive hit, when you understand something intuitively, you feel it, you sense it, and it sticks with you. A lot of people who have the moon in Taurus report that their intuition comes to them through like bodily sensations, like they feel it in their body in a very physical way. So it's very tactile. And certain ways that you can tap into your intuition, even if you're not feeling it in that tactile sense, with your moon is in Taurus, involve very Taurus types of themes. And so Taurus is very physical, very grounded. It's about the sensory experience. So I mentioned something like massage for somebody who has a Taurus moon to tap into your intuition. You could also very literally go on a walk in nature or sit and be in nature. You could do grounding. You could use things like crystals and rocks and things that are very tangible, colors, the sensory experience, to tap into the intuition and allow it to come to you. You know, it's not even that you need tangible proof if you're a Taurus moon necessarily. It's almost as if that feeling, that sensation that you're getting, that intuition is proof enough for you. And so Taurus moon people, unless there's something else going on that indicates otherwise, tend to trust their intuition pretty strongly. And they tend to stick with whatever it is that they're feeling or they're intuiting. Like they stick to their guns. It's not like they feel it and then all of a sudden they're wavering and off in a different direction, like a Virgo, which is what we're about to talk about in just a second here. And so Virgo is a mutable sign. And so the mutable signs, as I mentioned before, tend to fluctuate and have a harder time locking in on their intuition than some of the other signs. Even Pisces, which is considered to be a very intuitive sign, has issues with this, which we'll talk about when we get into water. But with Virgo, there's an energy of just kind of overthinking and really kind of like almost like a nervous or perfectionistic energy that blocks you or gets in the way of you actually following your intuition and trusting it and getting that clarity. This is one of those signs where you do need logical, rational proof of what it is you're intuiting in order to feel comfortable kind of following your inner guidance in a lot of ways. Some things that can be really great for the moon in the sign of Virgo for helping you to tap into your intuition are things like herbs. When you think about Virgo is about health and nutrition. So doing things, you know, in terms of taking like herbal medicines or herbs that are really good for calming the nervous system, like almost like mild sedative herbs and things like that, that can be very helpful for people who have a lot of Virgo energy. And especially if you tend to waver and second guess and third guess and not necessarily trust your intuition, where it's like, I felt like it was this way, but now I'm not sure. And now I'm thinking about this and I'm looking at this logically and this is happening and I don't know. That's a very Virgo thing. There's a lot of worrying going on about whether or not your intuition is right. Again, using things like herbs, even if you're just using them like as essential oils or for aromatherapy or something along those lines, that tends to work quite well for Virgos. And also just doing something very grounding, because out of all of the earth signs, Virgo is the least grounded because of that mutable energy. And so doing something that really grounds you into your physical body, like doing some sort of mindfulness practice, or very literally, it could even be moving your body or doing something like yoga or meditation that involves movement or that involves bodily sensation in some way to really ground you, that can be very helpful for Virgos as well. But there is that nervous energy, so you have to get yourself settled in order to get that clarity and use tangible means to do that. And then it'll kind of just come to you a little bit more easily. Finally, we have Capricorn. So Capricorns are a cardinal sign. And so with a Capricorn moon, your first impression is usually the right one. But Capricorns tend to doubt their intuition or suppress their intuition more than most of the signs in the zodiac, really any of the other signs in the zodiac, where, you might really be someone who needs that extra proof of what it is that you have felt, what it is that you're picking up on. And so Capricorn moon sign people tend to be the ones that will, they'll feel something or sense something, but then they'll like ask this person, and then they'll pull tarot cards, and then they'll use like, dowsing rods, and then they'll ask an astrologer, and then they'll ask a psychic. Like they'll need like all these different layers of proof for their intuition. They'll also look at it very practically, because that is a Capricornian thing to do, and very rationally, and like what's really going on here, what's logical, what's actually tangible on this planet Earth that I can see and sense, that backs up what I'm feeling. And if they don't have that, they might actually miss the mark, and they might not follow their intuition, and that can cause problems. One of the really nice things, though, about Capricorn moon people is that their intuition gets stronger with age, and they tend to trust their intuition a lot more so as they get older and wiser, and as they gain that experience of, hey, I have the proof of actual experience that when I feel this sensation, when I get this hit, it's usually something I should pay attention to. It's usually something I should follow. And that's the proof, right? The experience, the time becomes the proof that they need. And so that's kind of the energy of Capricorn moon signs. I would say in terms of actual tools that you can use, Capricorn is ruled by Saturn. Saturn very literally rules rocks. And so I mentioned for all of the earth signs, things like crystals, things that are from the earth, very literally. For Capricorn, crystals and rocks and things that literally come from the earth in that sense can be the most powerful tools, even if they don't necessarily believe that they do anything, because Capricorns, again, it's a very practical energy. Even just having that there, having that tangible element, can be very supportive to the intuition of a Capricorn moon. Moving on to air. So for air signs, it's all about thoughts and communication. And so it can be hard to distinguish for air signs between rational thought and actual like intuitive hits that they're getting. So it's kind of like, because it comes to them almost like in words and in language, as opposed to in sensation, like it does for the earth signs. I mentioned like that energy of maybe bodily sensation or physically feeling that something is going on here in a more tangible sort of way, in a more tactile sort of way. With air signs, it's like it comes to you almost as if it's a thought. It comes to you almost as if it's an idea. It's like an insight that pops into your brain out of nowhere, but it feels a little different than a normal thought. And that can make it hard to distinguish if you're not used to kind of picking up on what is a thought and what is this insight, what is an intuitive sort of idea or impulse that's coming to me in a thought form. And so that can make it a little bit difficult. And so there can be an over rationalizing for the air signs when it comes to the intuition, the hits that they get. This is also a masculine, very active energy, as opposed to the earth signs that we talked about, which are a little bit more receptive. They're feminine, right? We have this masculine, active energy with the air signs. And so you have to actually actively seek out the answers and maybe do something with it, or do something to actually enhance or stimulate your intuition. And so some things that really work for the air signs, obviously air, the breath, right? So breath work, especially for Gemini moons, breath work can be really powerful for stimulating intuition for those who have an air moon. And the air signs, for those who are not aware, are Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. Journaling can be a really powerful tool, or even kind of like, how do they call that? Like, I don't know if it's called scrying, but like where you just like write like free form, where you're just like, allowing it to to come. There's a word for it that my brain is not coming up with right now, but you guys know what I'm talking about. Or literally just writing everything that comes into your head until something really good pops out, right? That could be a really great thing to do for the air signs, or talking it out or communicating. Like communication with other people, or very literally learning about something can stimulate intuition because it gets your mind going, and it facilitates that download, those insights that really represent the bulk of the intuition of a moon sign or a moon in the air sign person. And so the air signs, first we have Gemini. So Gemini is a mutable sign. And so this is one where your intuition, again, fluctuates. It can be hard to pin down. You can get this like idea, this insight, this impulse that comes in this thought form. And then all of a sudden you're on to the next thing and the next idea and the next idea and the next idea. And then you lose track of it. It could also be like overthinking it too, kind of like that Virgo energy, but not as intensified or like as worried. It's more like your brain is just kind of all over the place. When you get this impulse, it's like it leads you down these rabbit holes where, okay, you're feeling this, and then all of a sudden you're thinking about this, and then you're thinking about that and feeling that out, and it kind of leads you in all these different directions where it kind of takes you away from that original impulse, that original idea, that original insight that came into your brain that was really an intuition. Gemini is, like I mentioned before, really good for doing breath work specifically because Gemini rules the lungs. Also, Gemini rules the hands and in the extremities. And so working with your hands or doing something with your hands, writing especially, but even if you're doing something like knitting or crocheting or painting, or, you know, just doing something where you're fiddling with your hands in some way that is a little bit more mindless so you can allow your mind to wander, that can be a really great way for Geminis to tap into their intuition and to kind of occupy themselves so they're not overthinking it and jumping around too much. You follow the thread a little bit more easily. Obviously, journaling is one of the best things for a Gemini moon to do. Going into Libra. So Libras are an interesting one. They can be more intuitive, but they kind of have this energy of like weighing the options, almost like they feel this certain impulse, but then they have to entertain the opposite of that. Like, I feel like this is the right thing to do, but also, you know, what about this opposite thing? What about this other option? How does that feel? And so it can almost be like overdoing it with feeling too many things out. That initial impulse is usually the right impulse because Libra is, as I mentioned before, a cardinal sign. And obviously you do need to actively engage with the energy, with the thoughts, with the things that are coming up for you. But weighing too many options or spending too much time entertaining alternatives, which is that Libra energy, that can lead you astray and kind of lead you away from that initial instinct, that initial impulse, that initial idea, that communication that came to you. Libras, for intuition, it's really good to bounce ideas or bounce your feelings and sensations off of other people, especially people who are highly intuitive, to help you weigh it out, to help you figure out whether or not what you're feeling is the right thing. Really, other people are your best kind of reflection of what is right for you, and they can really help you. Like, those interactions with other people can really help you. Also, Moon and Libra people tend to be very intuitive when it comes to their assessments and judgments of other people. So that's really where you shine, is like feeling something about someone else when you're in their presence and that being really accurate, especially when it comes to first impressions. Libra Moon people usually get it very right when it comes to assessing and evaluating other people in relationship. And so that's another thing with the Libra Moon, just to kind of be aware of. So you do have that talent and that capability. But weighing the options, bouncing things off of other people, using other people as a conduit to kind of help facilitate intuition, that's a really Libra thing. Also just beauty. So spending time in surroundings or engaging in something that's really beautiful. Music also, by the way, for Libra Moon people, music really helps. So doing something like binaural beats or just listening to music, especially music that doesn't have a lot of craziness and chaos and words, can really help enhance your intuition. Going into Aquarius. Aquarius Moon people are weirdly intuitive. And I don't just say that because, you know, the Aquarian stereotype of being kind of weird or offbeat. You know, they are, like, for an air sign especially, they're very intuitive. When I did my webinar on the astrology of intuitive abilities and psychic abilities and all of that, a new pattern that I kind of noticed a little bit before but really stuck out when I was doing my chart research was that people who have Aquarius moons tend to be highly, highly intuitive and correct in their intuition. And so their intuition comes to them in these genius flashes of insight, these inspirations, these thought forms, like I mentioned before. But because it's a fixed energy, they lock it in and they stick with it. And they don't question it as much. They're like used to this. They're like, oh, that's weird that just came to me. It must be something. And so, you know, Aquarius moon signs typically don't have a lot of trouble with their intuition, even though it's a Saturn-ruled sign in traditional astrology. You would think maybe there'd be some issue there. There really doesn't tend to be, and they tend to have the ability to actually do something with that intuition too. So I saw a lot of Aquarius moon energy with people who are highly intuitive or worked in the intuitive arts or had a lot of just really strong intuition. And so that's something that you really have in your back pocket. You know, working with groups, that type of thing, that's obviously an Aquarian thing, but really it's about the insight. It's about getting that flash, that genius, that inspiration, that hit, and, you know, just sticking with it. And that's a talent that you have, so you're good. And you don't care if people think it's weird, like, well, I think this, or I have this inspiration, I have this idea, I feel it's this way. And like, I mean, you don't care if other people think that what you're saying doesn't make sense or is weird. You're an Aquarius moon, so you're, again, more likely not to second guess it and more likely to stick with it. Okay, so moving on to the fire signs. The fire signs are another masculine, very active energy. The fire signs tend to have the most difficult time tapping into their intuition. The air signs, it comes in the form of thoughts, so it's like, okay, yeah. And some of the fire signs do get these like really visceral experiences of their intuition, and especially if you have other indicators in your chart, that can be very helpful. It's almost like an impulse or a visceral like electricity. It's almost like you just feel it in that way, like, oh yeah. Like you're inspired, or you feel it. It's kind of harder to explain than some of the other signs, especially because I'm not a fire moon sign myself, but I've heard it described by plenty of fire moon signs as like an impulse or a visceral reaction to something, a visceral sensation that really just it sticks out to you in some way. It's different than the tangible, like where you know, the earth signs, especially those Taurus moon people, they might feel like something on their skin, like their skin crawls, or they get goosebumps, or they feel like tingles or something like that. It's very tactile. With fire, it's more visceral. It's more like an energy that you feel, and it's more inside. It can almost be like a solar plexus sort of thing. And so the fire signs are all about action, impulse. Movement can really help with the fire signs to stimulate your intuition. So if you're somebody who is having trouble kind of feeling something out or getting clarity on a situation, you have a fire sign, go for a run, lift some weights, do karate, I don't know, whatever it is that you do. Climb a mountain, do something physical with your energy, and that can actually really stimulate intuition and those impulses and those sensations, the energy to move through your body, so you can actually feel things out a lot more effectively. And so that's my biggest thing with fire signs. The other thing too is like using fire itself as a tangible tool to stimulate intuition. So in meditation, like burning incense, burning candles, literally sitting by a fire, laying out in the sun, getting that heat, or being in a sauna, that can be a big thing for fire sign moon signs, and just fire signs in general, to help stimulate your intuition. So those are all things that you can think about. And so the fire signs are Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. And so for Aries, that's the one where you need to really get physical about it. So taking action, moving your body, doing something very intense when it comes to physical activity can stimulate your intuition. Aries moon signs tend to be weirdly intuitive, but they have to really trust their first instinct, their first impulse, and they usually actually do. There's not a lot of second guessing or third guessing with an Aries moon sign. It's like, oh, I feel this. This is intense. I'm going to run with it, right? And so yeah, that one is probably out of the fire signs the most intuitive, or I guess not the most intuitive, you're all intuitive fire signs. They have the easiest time accessing, understanding, and using their intuition because they feel something and then they use it. That is that Aries energy. Aries especially can do really well with that movement and with using fire or heat to stimulate intuition in some way. Leo is the fixed energy, which fixed energies do tend to be a little bit better with their intuition. For whatever reason, I've noticed that the Aries moons are a little bit more intuitive or easily able to tap into their intuition, but Leo moons can as well. Again, it's about that impulse. You feel it in a very visceral sort of way. It's almost like especially because Leo rules the heart, and so it's almost like you feel it in your heart center. It's like a heart opening when something is right for you. It's like, ah. Versus a closing off when something isn't right for you. So it's kind of like that heart-centered energy, that heart chakra, that's like guiding your intuition or leading you in some way. So following your heart, very literally for Leo moons, that's the way to go. And when you do feel that heart-opening energy, that tells you that this is the right thing for you, Leo moon people do tend to stick with it. It is a fixed sign energy versus that closed off energy, right? When you are open versus closed. Things that can really help with Leo moon signs are especially sunlight, because Leo is ruled by the sun. And so Leo moons, if you have the ability to go and just like lay on the beach or be out in the sunlight, get some vitamin D, sit outside at sunrise or sunset when the sun is transitioning from day to night, those types of things, that can be very helpful for Leos to tap into your intuition. Sagittarius. So for Sagittarius, again, it's a mutable sign. Sagittarius moons can have a hard time with following their intuition because emotionally they feel very optimistic about a lot of different things. They tend to be, when it comes to their mood and overall just kind of internal sensation, dialogue, subjective experience of reality, they feel fired up and hopeful and optimistic and just excited about everything. So, they see that there are a lot of different options out there. So even if one thing initially feels really right, or one thing sticks out as being a little bit more exciting, a little bit more of a grander opportunity, they want to play the field. They want to have all the different experiences and adventures. They want to entertain a lot of different options because they see the myriad of options that are available to them, and they feel that a lot of different things could work out for them and could work out really well. And so it's almost like not a fear of missing out, but a desire to do it all, or to experience it all, or to feel it all. That can be kind of the downfall of Sagittarius moon signs really locking in on their intuition. That being said, something that they can do to really tap into it more effectively is travel, right? Very literally, Sagittarius is associated with travel. Do something very physical. Sagittarius is another very physically active sign. Or study. So doing like very deep spiritual study, religious study, that type of thing can really help guide you. Just following your intuition, but also following or being led by your integrity is another big thing for Sagittarius moon signs as well. And again, that fire element does come into play. So using things very literally that have heat or fire involved. So Sagittarius moon signs might want to like go and sit in a sauna, like get an infrared sauna and sit in there and use that as your meditative time, or something along those lines to stimulate that energy, to stimulate that flow of energy through the body so you can feel that visceral impulse and know which one is the actual impulse, which one is the actual intuitive hit, and what are things that you're just feeling excited about that might not be the things that are right for you. All right, and finally, last but certainly not least, the water signs, which are considered to be the most intuitive of all the signs because water represents feeling, emotion, creativity, and intuition. And so the water signs, for those who are not aware, are Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. Cancer, or let's kind of start with what the how you get your intuition as a water sign. So water signs experience their intuition through feelings, through impressions, sometimes through visions, but through sensations, through feelings and emotions especially. When they're having an intuitive hit, they kind of know. It's like an inner knowing, it's a feeling, it's a subjective state. They're very, very receptive. And so they receive intuition. They don't actively seek it out. It just comes to them. It's like a natural capability or a natural ability of the water sign moon people. And so very literally being near water, if you're having trouble distinguishing or you're feeling too thrown off by other people's energy, because these are very compassionate moon signs and very sensitive moon signs, where not only do you have enhanced intuition, but you're often picking up on a lot of other people's stuff, a lot of the energy in your environment. And that's really where the water sign moons get thrown off intuitively. They get thrown off by picking up on too many different things outside of themselves. Especially when we get into that Pisces moon energy. And so being near water, being in water, taking a bath, going swimming, being by the ocean, being by a lake, being just by water or running water in general can be very helpful for water signs, for opening up the intuition of the moon. And so for Cancer, Cancer is a cardinal water sign, and the Cancer moon signs are very, very, very intuitive. The issue with the Cancer moon sign is that their first impulse is usually correct. It's a cardinal sign. However, they get led astray by their emotions in the moment. And so, yes, the moon is at home in Cancer, so they do have very strong intuition, but when they are in a very emotionally charged situation, that can throw them off course. That can sort of cloud their judgment when it comes to their intuition. So when there's emotional extremes involved, their intuition can't be trusted as easily. Also, Cancer moon signs tend to pick up on and absorb the emotions of others. They're very compassionate. They're very emotionally intuitive when it comes to the energy of other people. Empathic is a word a lot of people would use for that. And so, because of that like true empathic energy where they're feeling and understanding the emotions of other people so intensely, if they're around other people who are highly emotionally charged, that can throw off their intuition, that can throw them off kilter, that can lead them astray just as much so as their own emotional experience. Again, your first instinct, if you're a Cancer moon, is usually the right one. Everything else after that is probably how you're feeling in that moment. For Cancers, taking a bath or doing something that involves water in the home, or being by a lake or being in a lake, those types of things can be very, very helpful for Cancer moon signs. And I mean, I'm a Cancer moon sign myself, and some of my biggest intuitions come to me when I'm just getting ready for the day, in the shower, in the bath, literally, or just washing my face. So I can tell you from experience that water works. When it comes to the Scorpio moon signs get a bit of a bad rap. The moon is at its fall in Scorpio, which means it's not able to operate very effectively. But when we're talking about the moon in the sign of Scorpio, it's not that you're not intuitive, it's that you feel things so intensely, but you tend to not express them or overexpress them, or it kind of builds up like a volcano and you express your emotions inappropriately. But it can be an energy where you are highly intuitive, highly sensitive, you're picking up on a lot of intense energies in your environment. A lot of times people with the moon in the sign of Scorpio are very psychic, and they pick up on stuff that can be very challenging for other people and can be very scary to them as well. And so they tend to be closed off from that, or they tend to intentionally close themselves off from that if that is the case, because otherwise they'd be overwhelmed by these experiences, their inner emotional experience, but also all of this psychic energy that they're picking up on all over the place. It's intense. They tend to feel things very intensely, but they tend not to trust other people with those feelings, with those emotions, with those intuitive hits that they're kind of coming into. And so it's a little bit of a battle there for those moon in Scorpio people, but that doesn't mean they're not very intuitive. They're not just intuitive, they're usually highly psychic, which is a little bit different. And so they know stuff and they're seeing things, they're experiencing things that you might not be fully aware of. But the trick with the moon in the sign of Scorpio people is almost like, especially when they have an intuition about something that's like dark or difficult or challenging or really emotionally charged, there can be an obsessing over it. And there can be kind of an obsessing or ruminating over it, but not actually doing something with it. And that can be one of the energies of the fixed energy of the Scorpio moon. It's really just a matter of not just feeling something, but actually taking action on it, doing something with it, not being afraid to follow your instincts or intuition, or not being afraid to tell others or open up to somebody, especially people that maybe you trust the most, that you consider to be your allies in life. Leaning on those people, because there is a sensitivity to betrayal that can kind of cloud your judgment, cloud your intuition, or stop you from actually doing something that you might be needing to be doing, and not allowing it to be overwhelming to you. So for Scorpio moon people, that energy of water is very important. Running water and active water, though, because of that Mars energy that's associated with Scorpio, can be best. So like being in a river or near a river where the water is flowing, like a waterfall even, or being in a shower where the water is moving, that would be the best way to use water in order to harness your intuition and to sort of clear away the emotionally charged energy that's outside of you or that's not relevant to the situation. When it comes to the final water sign, which is Pisces, Pisces moon signs are so highly intuitive, but they don't really know what to do with it. And they're not always perfectly accurate because they're picking up on so many different energies and so many different sensations. For a Pisces moon person, you are usually highly sensitive. You're highly sensitive to other people's emotions, to other people's energy, to energy in your environment, to things that are going on a global scale. You're feeling and picking up on so much that's really what leads you astray. So it's like you intuitively know. There's you get your intuition through like visions and impressions, and you know what's right. It can come through a dream, it can come through a meditation, it can come through just a sensation that's very strong. But you get led astray by all of these different energies, all of these different feelings that you're picking up on because you're so compassionate and so empathic and so open and so absorbent of all of the energy in your environment. And so for Pisces moon people, spending time alone, spending time away from others, spending time in solitude, seclusion, in your own space, in your own energy, that could actually be one of the best ways for you to actually harness and tap into your intuition. Different spiritual practices, different creative practices like painting, things like that can be very helpful for, moon and Pisces people as well. Dreaming and just napping and daydreaming can be a really good source of like intuition, or a really good way to stimulate your intuition. And again, literally being in water, being out in nature in water, being at home in water, just being in water in general can be very supportive to the intuition of a Pisces and can help clear away some of the energetic and emotional imprints of all the energy you're picking up on in your environment. It's almost like it literally washes it away. So that's my spiel for Pisces. You guys are so intuitive though, so intuitive. But because there's so much going on, that mutability, right, can lead you astray. So you want to make sure that you're in your own space and in your own energy to get clarity and make a clear decision or get that clear impulse, get that clear intuition. And that is all of the zodiac signs, all of the elements. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comment section down below what your moon sign is and what your experience is with your intuition. And if you know it, let me know your other placements associated with your moon. Do you have a square from Saturn? Do you have a trine from Mars? What's going on with the moon in your chart, and how do you access your intuition? What blocks you from understanding your intuition or utilizing it the most? Let me know in the comment section down below. And if you like this video, of course, like the video, subscribe to my channel so you never miss an important astrology update, and share this with your friends if you feel like they can benefit from the information that I just shared with you today. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, everyone.